The moment the nurse smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're going to be a mother." For a moment, time stopped. The world blurred, and all I could hear was the steady drum of my heartbeat. My hands trembled as I stared at the two pink lines that would change everything. I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Because this was it. The dream I had whispered to him on quiet nights, when our world felt safe and full of promise. I imagined calling him, hearing his voice light up with joy, maybe even a tear in his eye. I imagined him holding me, saying we'd raise this child together, with love, with strength, with all the things we'd ever wanted. But that moment of joy didn't last long. When I picked up my phone to tell him the news, a notification blinked across the screen, a picture of him, smiling beside another woman. A caption beneath it. She said yes. My heart dropped. The same man who promised me forever had just promised it to someone else. That day, I found out I was pregnant, and I also found out the man I loved was already engaged to another woman. It's strange how one random moment can rewrite the story of your entire life. For me, it started with a simple hi on a Wednesday night. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even looking for attention. I was scrolling aimlessly, half bored, half tired, when his message appeared, casual, polite, but with a spark that made me stop. "You look like someone who overthinks everything," he wrote. I laughed because he was right. His name was Adil, and there was something about the way he spoke that felt warm. Not desperate, not forced, just easy. Our first conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. We talked about coffee, music, broken dreams, and the kind of childhoods that teach you both strength and silence. He told me he loved the rain. I told him I hated thunder. Somehow, that small difference became a running joke between us. Over the next few weeks, we started talking every day. It became a rhythm, his good morning before work, his sleep well before bed. We didn't realize when friendship quietly turned into something deeper. He started remembering small things about me, the way I bit my lip when I was nervous, the songs I hummed while cooking, the way my voice softened when I talked about my late father. He made me feel seen, and in a world where most people only look at you, that felt rare. The first time we met in person, I was terrified. I still remember the smell of coffee beans in that tiny cafe, the low hum of people talking, and how he stood up when I walked in, smiling, nervous, but confident enough to make me blush. He wore a white shirt that looked freshly ironed, and he smelled like something expensive but comforting. When he reached out to shake my hand, it felt like the beginning of something that had been waiting to happen. That day, we talked for hours, losing track of time. He told me about his dreams, starting his own business, traveling, building something meaningful. I told him about my fears, of being too soft, of trusting too quickly, of being left behind. He didn't laugh. He listened. And then he said something I'll never forget. "If you ever fall, I'll make sure you never hit the ground alone." Those words wrapped around my heart like a promise. Days turned into weeks, and soon we were inseparable. He met my friends, sent flowers to my office, and called my mother Auntie in that respectful, slightly awkward way that made her smile. Everyone said we looked perfect together, that kind of love people write about, but rarely experience. Looking back now, I realize how perfectly he played his part. The late-night calls, the future plans, the promises, they weren't lies exactly, but they weren't truth either. They were half-built dreams, painted beautifully, hiding cracks I didn't want to see. Because sometimes, love doesn't begin with a warning. It begins with a smile that feels like home, and ends with a truth that breaks you apart. Promises, they sound so beautiful when they're spoken by someone you trust. They feel like soft blankets you can wrap around your heart, a shelter against every fear you've ever known. And when Adil made promises, he didn't just say words, he made you believe them. It started small. He'd hold my hand during long drives and say, "One day, we'll have our own place, maybe near the beach, where mornings smell like coffee and sea salt." I'd laugh and call him dramatic, but deep down, I pictured it too. He'd talk about how our evenings would look, him reading the newspaper, me humming while cooking dinner, our kids running around, laughter echoing through the house. He said it so vividly that I started to see it when I closed my eyes. He used to tell me that he never believed in love until me. "You changed me," he'd whisper. "You made me softer, calmer, more human." And I'd blush, not realizing that love can make you blind to the small cracks forming underneath the sweetness. There was one night I'll never forget. We were sitting on the rooftop, the sky painted with stars, and he looked at me with that intense seriousness he rarely showed. "If I ever hurt you," he said, "I hope I lose everything. Because you're the one thing I can't afford to lose." My heart melted. I thought those were the kind of words that could build a lifetime. I didn't know they were the kind that could also destroy it. He met my mother that winter. She made biryani, her way of testing if a man is truly interested, and he ate 2 full plates, praising her cooking like a seasoned actor. She smiled at me after he left that night and said, "He's a good man, Beta. Hold on to him." And I did. With both hands. With my whole heart. Adil started talking about marriage in subtle ways. He'd tease me about wedding dresses, say things like, "Red would look perfect on you." He promised we'd get married as soon as his business stabilized. "Just a few months," he'd say, "and then we'll start our life together properly." I didn't push. I believed him. Because love teaches you patience, and sometimes foolishness too. When I got sick one week, he drove 2 hours after work just to bring me soup. He sat by my bedside, brushing my hair away and whispering, "You'll be my wife one day. My forever." I remember thinking, how lucky am I? He built a world for me with his words, a home, a future, a family, and I lived inside it like it was real. Every message, every late-night call, every "I love you" stitched that illusion tighter around me. But promises, I later learned, are easy to make when you know you'll never have to keep them. They say a woman's heart can sense when something is wrong, even before her mind is ready to admit it. For me, it started quietly, like a shadow creeping under the door. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, just little signs. Adil used to call me every night before bed. It became our ritual. No matter how tired he was, he'd whisper, "Good night, my peace," and I'd fall asleep smiling.
But slowly, that changed.
One night, he said he was too tired to talk. Then it became 2 nights. Then a full week. "Just busy with work," he said. His voice sounded different, distant, careful, like he was choosing each word instead of feeling them. He started replying late to my messages. Sometimes hours would pass before I'd get a simple "sorry" caught up. The emojis disappeared. The long conversations turned into short updates. I told myself it was stress, that his business was growing, that he needed space. But in the pit of my stomach, something uneasy began to live. He stopped visiting as often, too. Before, he'd show up at my door with snacks, laughing that I cooked too healthy. Now, he always had an excuse. Meeting ran late. Car trouble. I'll make it up to you. But later started becoming never. And yet, he still knew how to keep me hanging. Every time I decided to confront him, he'd suddenly become the man I fell in love with, soft, charming, full of attention. He'd bring flowers, hug me like nothing had changed, and say, "Don't overthink, baby. You know I'm yours." Those few words were enough to quiet my doubts for a while. Then came the first lie I caught. It was a Sunday night. He said he was home, exhausted, watching a movie with his mom. But when I checked his Instagram story later, there was a picture of him at a restaurant. Not alone. A girl's reflection caught faintly in the glass window beside him. I stared at it for a long time, my chest tight, my throat burning. I didn't ask. I told myself it could be anyone, a friend, a colleague, maybe even his cousin. I wanted to believe that so badly. But once you see something, you can't unsee it. The little inconsistencies started stacking up like stones. The faint perfume on his shirt that wasn't mine, the sudden change in his phone password, the way he turned his phone screen away when messages popped up. One night, while he was at my place, his phone rang, an unknown number flashing with a heart emoji beside it. He silenced it instantly, pretending not to notice my stare. My stomach twisted, but I smiled anyway, pretending to be calm. Because sometimes, Love makes you lie to yourself harder than anyone else ever could. Deep down, I knew something was slipping away. He was still beside me, but his heart, it was already somewhere else. And the scariest part? I didn't know where or with whom. I remember that morning like it happened yesterday. The sky was soft and pale, and there was a nervous flutter in my chest that wouldn't calm down. I had been feeling strange for days, dizzy, tired, emotional over the smallest things. I brushed it off at first, but when I missed my period, a quiet thought began to grow inside me. I bought a pregnancy test, convincing myself it would be negative. But when those 2 pink lines appeared, I froze. I sat on the bathroom floor, the test trembling in my hand, tears blurring my vision. I should have been scared, but I wasn't. I was happy. Because in that moment, I imagined Adil's face lighting up with joy. I imagined him lifting me in his arms, saying we'd build a family together. We had talked about this, after all, the house, the children, the future. This was our dream becoming real. I waited until evening to call him. My voice was shaking, but I managed to say, "Adil, I have news." He sounded distracted at first, but when I told him, there was a long pause. Then he whispered, "Are you serious?" I laughed and said, "Yes. We're going to be parents." He came over within an hour. His eyes were wide, his smile forced but present. He hugged me, told me it would be okay, that he was happy for me. But something about his tone didn't feel right.
He didn't say us, he said you.
His hands were cold, his gaze unfocused. When I asked if he was okay, he said, "Just shocked, that's all. It's a big thing." That night, when he left, I felt a strange emptiness. I wanted excitement, reassurance, plans, but all I got was silence. He didn't message me the next morning. Or the next. Days turned into a week, and my messages went from gentle reminders to desperate pleas. Then one afternoon, while scrolling through social media, my world shattered. There it was, a picture of Adil, dressed in a crisp black suit, kneeling with a ring in his hand. Beside him stood a woman I had never seen before, smiling like she'd found forever. The caption beneath read, "She said yes. Engaged to my soulmate." I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. For a full minute, I just stared at the screen, praying it was an old picture, a misunderstanding, anything. But the date was yesterday. He had proposed, while I was sitting at home, carrying his child. When I called him, he didn't pick up. I called again. Finally, he answered, his voice flat, exhausted. "I was going to tell you," he said. I asked, "Tell me what, Adil?" "That you're engaged." He sighed and said, "It's complicated." That's when the truth hit me like a blade. I was pregnant with a man's child who had already promised his life to someone else. I didn't confront him right away. Maybe because I was still hoping, foolishly, that there was some explanation, some reason that would make it all make sense. My mind couldn't accept it. The same man who whispered forever in my ear couldn't be the one smiling beside another woman. It felt like a cruel dream I hadn't woken from yet. For 2 days, I stayed silent. I read that caption 100 times. She said yes. Each time, it cut a little deeper. I kept touching my belly, whispering to the tiny life growing inside me, "Don't worry, Mama's here." I didn't know how I'd face him, or what I'd even say, but I knew I had to. I deserved the truth. When he finally called, his tone was casual, like nothing had happened. "I've been busy," he said. "You okay?" "Busy," I asked quietly. "Busy getting engaged?" There was a long silence. Then a shaky sigh. "You saw it." "Yes, Adil. The whole world saw it." My voice trembled, but I held it together. "Tell me it's fake. Tell me she's your cousin. Tell me anything I can believe."
He didn't.
Instead, he said the words that broke me more than the betrayal itself. "It's complicated." Complicated. That's what he called it. My shattered heart, my unborn child, my stolen future. I asked him to come over. When he arrived, he looked tired or maybe guilty. His eyes darted everywhere, but my face. I placed the sonogram photo on the table between us. "That's your baby," I said softly. Our baby. He closed his eyes. For a moment, I thought I saw regret. Then he said, I didn't plan for this. You know how my family is. They arranged everything with her long ago. I couldn't stop it. I stared at him, disbelief mixing with rage. You couldn't stop it? You had time to take me out, hold me, make promises, sleep next to me, but you couldn't stop an engagement. He rubbed his face, muttering, You don't understand. It's not easy. I stood up, tears burning my eyes. You're right, Adil.
I don't understand.
I don't understand how you can look at me, knowing I'm carrying your child, and still plan a wedding with someone else. For a second, he reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I didn't want comfort. I wanted truth, and he had none left to give. He tried to leave quietly, mumbling, I'll handle it somehow. But I stopped him at the door.
No, Adel. You've already handled it.
You've chosen your side. That night, I sat alone in the dark, holding the ultrasound photo against my heart. The woman who once believed in his promises was gone. In her place stood someone broken, but stronger. Because when the truth finally hits, pain doesn't destroy you, it awakens you. After that confrontation, I thought I had reached the peak of my heartbreak. I believed nothing could hurt more than hearing the man I loved say he was engaged to someone else. But I was wrong. The real pain came later, piece by piece, as I began to uncover the truth he'd so carefully buried beneath lies. At first, I told myself to let it go. I wanted peace, not revenge. I wanted to focus on my pregnancy, my health, my sanity. But silence is a dangerous companion. It leaves space for curiosity, and curiosity has claws. So one restless night, I gave in. I opened my laptop and typed her name, the woman he was engaged to. Her profile appeared instantly, smiling, radiant, full of life. And there he was too, tagged in her photos, standing beside her like the perfect fiancé. The captions beneath her posts cut me deeper than any blade could. Can't wait to marry the man of my dreams. Forever starts soon. Each picture was a story of love and celebration. Their love, their story, built on top of my broken one. As I scrolled through the comments, I started noticing dates. Pictures that overlapped with the time Adil and I were together. Trips he'd told me he was taking for business. Dinners he claimed were with clients. Every photo became proof that while I was waiting for his calls, he was busy planning a wedding with her. The realization made me physically sick. I remember running to the bathroom, my stomach twisting, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated. I had loved a man who had been living a double life right in front of me. The next day, I decided to know everything. I called one of his close friends, someone who always acted uncomfortable around me, as if he was carrying a secret. At first, he hesitated, but when I told him I was pregnant, his tone changed. You didn't know? He asked softly. His family arranged this marriage months ago. He didn't want to tell you because, well, he said it would complicate things. Complicate things. That phrase again. To him, I was a complication. Our child was a mistake. That night, I found old receipts in his car when I went to return one of his jackets. A jewelry store, a designer boutique, a reservation at a luxury hotel, all dated within the same weeks he'd told me he was busy. I stared at them until the ink blurred through my tears. The truth was everywhere now, loud and undeniable. And yet, a strange calm washed over me. Because while his lies had destroyed my trust, they had also freed me. I no longer needed to wait for explanations. I no longer needed his words. In that painful discovery, something powerful awakened inside me. A quiet, burning strength. The kind of strength that comes when you finally realize that sometimes losing someone's lies is the first step toward finding your truth. After the storm of truth settled, silence filled my world. Not peace, just silence. The kind that hums inside your chest after a scream. I stopped calling him. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. For the first time in months, I sat with myself, really sat, and asked what now. I was carrying a life inside me, a child who hadn't even entered this world yet, but had already been touched by betrayal. I felt torn between two paths, one that led to anger, destruction, revenge, and another that led to rebuilding, to protecting what little good I had left. I chose the second. But choosing peace doesn't mean it's easy. Every morning, I'd wake up to a heaviness that pressed against my ribs. My mind replayed every memory, his laughter, his touch, his promises, like a cruel movie I couldn't turn off. There were moments I wanted to hate him, truly hate him. But each time my hand brushed against my belly, I reminded myself, this pain has a purpose now. So I made a decision not out of spite but out of strength. I would raise my child alone. I would give this baby a life filled with love, even if it came from just one parent. I would not beg him to stay. I would not fight for a place in his life, and I would not let his cowardice define me. The first thing I did was visit my doctor and plan everything properly, my appointments, diet, finances, everything that would make sure my baby came into this world healthy and safe. I stopped hiding the pregnancy from my family. Telling my mother was the hardest part. I expected anger, disappointment, but she just held me and said, "You are stronger than you think." Those words became my lifeline. I wrote everything down. Every detail, every lie, every receipt. Not for revenge, but as a reminder. A reminder never to fall for half-truths again. I deleted our pictures, blocked his number, and packed every memory of him into a small box that I locked away. It was my way of saying goodbye, not just to him, but to the version of me that thought love meant sacrificing self-respect. I started saving money again, picking up extra work from home, reading about single motherhood, and joining online support groups. Each step, no matter how small, was me taking back control. I realized I didn't need him to complete me. I needed to complete myself. The decision to walk away wasn't easy. It hurt in ways I can't describe. But sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is to stop trying to fix what broke her and start building something beautiful out of what remains. That night, as I whispered to my unborn child, I said softly, "We don't need anyone else, my love. We have each other now. And that's enough." They say revenge doesn't always come wrapped in anger. Sometimes it comes dressed in truth. And my truth, once I found it, refused to stay silent any longer. For weeks, I'd been living in shadows, hiding my pregnancy, while he played the perfect fiancé in front of the world. I watched him post smiling pictures, saw people congratulate him, and I realized silence was protecting him, not me. Every time I swallowed my pain, I gave him the power to pretend nothing had happened. And I couldn't do that anymore. Not when I was carrying his child. Not when he was building a life on lies. So I decided to reveal everything. Not with drama or screaming, just pure, undeniable truth. It began with one simple message. I drafted it slowly, my hands trembling but my mind sharp. To everyone celebrating Adil's engagement, I thought you should know, I am carrying his child. I stared at those words for a long time. They weren't vengeful. They weren't cruel. They were just honest. The truth he refused to face. I sent it privately first, to his fiancée, then to his closest friends, and finally, I posted it on my social media.
No captions. No hashtags.
Just the truth. Within hours, the world around him cracked. My phone started buzzing nonstop, messages, calls, screenshots. Some people called me brave. Some called me shameless. And some, as always, stayed silent. But the silence didn't scare me anymore.
He called me that night.
I still remember his voice, shaky, almost broken. "Why did you do this?" he asked. "You've ruined everything." I laughed softly, not bitterly, just tired. "I didn't ruin anything, Adil. I just told the truth. You're the one who built a lie." He begged me to delete the post, said it would destroy his reputation, his family's name, his engagement. But I didn't care about his image anymore. I cared about the life growing inside me, the innocent heartbeat that deserved honesty. I told him, "You can run from me, but not from your responsibility." His fiancée reached out too. Her voice was quiet, broken. "Is it true?" she whispered. I didn't have the heart to lie. Yes, I said. I wish it wasn't. There was a long silence, and then she simply said, "Thank you for telling me." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just revealing him, I was freeing myself. The next few days were chaos for him. His engagement collapsed. His friends distanced themselves. His family went into panic mode.
But me?
For the first time in months, I could breathe. The weight I'd been carrying, the guilt, the shame, the secrecy, it all lifted. The truth had finally spoken. And while it shattered his world, it rebuilt mine. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't screaming or hurting someone back. It's standing tall, speaking your truth, and watching the lies crumble on their own. After the reveal, my life didn't suddenly become easier, but it became real. The masks were off. The pretending was over. What remained was raw, painful honesty, and strangely, it felt like freedom. The days that followed were quiet in the beginning, almost too quiet. I expected chaos. People talking behind my back, whispers in my neighborhood, pitying looks from those who meant well. And yes, it happened. But after a while, I stopped caring. You can't destroy someone who has already walked through fire and survived. Adil tried to contact me a few more times. He sent long messages about how sorry he was, how he made a mistake, how he wanted to make things right. But his version of right was twisted. He wanted me to stay silent, to disappear quietly so his family wouldn't face shame. He even offered money, a place to stay, a future, but only if I agreed to let him live his life without consequences. I refused. I didn't want his pity. I didn't want his guilt. I wanted my peace. And peace doesn't come from going back to what broke you. It comes from walking away and never looking back. My family stood by me. My mother, who had always been my quiet strength, became my anchor. She helped me through doctor visits, through sleepless nights, through the moments when I'd break down without warning. She never said, "I told you so." She just held me and said, "You did the right thing." Slowly, I began rebuilding my life. I found small freelance projects, started saving money again, and even began journaling every night, not about him, but about me, about the woman who was learning to stand again. As my belly grew, so did my strength. Every kick reminded me that I wasn't alone, that I had a reason to keep moving forward. I started attending prenatal classes, met other single mothers, and realized that my story, though painful, wasn't unique. There were countless women who had been betrayed, abandoned, or silenced, and yet they kept living, kept loving, kept fighting. That realization healed me more than any apology ever could. Of course, the gossip never completely stopped. Some people still whispered. Some still judged. But I learned something valuable. Their opinions didn't define me. My truth did. When my baby boy was born, I held him close and whispered, "You are my new beginning." In that moment, everything, the lies, the heartbreak, the tears, faded into the background. All that mattered was him and the life ahead of us. Adil never showed up at the hospital. And strangely, I was grateful for that. His absence was the final confirmation that I had chosen the right path. The aftermath wasn't just about loss, it was about rebirth. I wasn't the same woman who had fallen in love with him. I was stronger, wiser, and finally free. And sometimes, that's the best ending a broken story can have. If you had told me a year ago that I would be here, a single mother, rebuilding my life from pieces I didn't even know how to hold, I would have laughed. Or cried. Maybe both. Because the woman I was back then thought love was enough. She believed promises, ignored red flags, and trusted words more than actions. But the woman I've become now, she knows better. Pain changes you. It reshapes the way you see the world, and yourself. I used to think heartbreak was a sign of weakness, something to hide, something shameful. But now I understand it's proof that you felt deeply, that you gave your all, that you dared to love in a world that often confuses love with convenience. What happened to me wasn't fair. I won't pretend it was. Being betrayed by the person I trusted most broke something inside me that may never fully heal. But I've stopped trying to erase the pain. Instead, I've learned to build around it, to let it remind me of how much I survived. To every woman listening to this, who's been lied to, abandoned, or made to feel like she's not enough, hear me clearly. You are enough. You always were. You don't need someone else to complete you, validate you, or save you. You can rebuild your life with your own hands, even when those hands are trembling. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wishing I could turn back time, wishing I could unmeet him, unwant him. But now I see, if I hadn't gone through that storm, I wouldn't have found this version of me. The one who doesn't settle for half love, who knows her worth, who fights not for attention but for peace. When I look at my son now, sleeping peacefully in my arms, I realize he was never a mistake. He was the blessing hidden in all the chaos. The universe took something broken and gave me something pure in return, a reason to live, a reason to heal, a reason to believe in love again, even if it's just the love between a mother and her child. Adil is nothing more than a chapter now. Not the whole story. Just a painful, necessary lesson that taught me how to love myself more fiercely than I ever loved him. And I'm grateful, not for his betrayal, but for the strength it unlocked in me. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Sometimes, the ending you fear the most is the beginning you need. Walk away from what breaks you. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. And remember, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing yourself, again and again, until it no longer hurts. Because one day, you'll look back, like I do now, and realize you didn't lose him. You found you. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories of love, betrayal, and strength.